Hey YouTube, I'm Motor Racing Network Steve Post with another collection of great diecast just received from Lionel and ready to go. They're at your local diecast dealer or at planbsales.com. And with the great holiday season comes the holiday cars that we have. And Jimmy Johnson, the Jimmy Johnson Foundation featured on this race car. So we have that, the famous number 48 car, the car that won the championship this year. How about Tony Stewart and the Tony Stewart Foundation car? An absolute beauty. Chevrolet car for Tony Stewart, and Kyle Busch and the Kyle Busch Foundation on the hood of that car for Kyle Busch, part of the holiday collection from Lionel. And Kyle Busch car, we also have the M&M's peanut butter cars, and boy, I don't know if you've had those peanut butter M&M's. They are fantastic, and this is the race car with the M&M's peanut butter colors on it for Kyle Busch. The Toyotas from over at Joe Gibbs Racing. Casey Kane had a lot of different paint schemes this year. Remember this one? The Pepsi Max colors that we had for Casey Kane earlier this season for Hendrick Motorsports. And Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s the racetoachieve.org machine with National Guard on the side of it. A nice looking red and white car for Dale Earnhardt Jr. All of these cars available as well. Marcus Ambrose. This is the Miracle Racing for a Miracle Network car that Marcus Ambrose had in color chrome with DeWalt, and a lot of little names and messages on the nose of this race car. Really, really cool car we had. Also a cool car, particularly from a historical perspective, is Trevor Bayne's car that saluted 150 years for Henry Ford, the motorcraft car that they had. The 150th birthday for Henry Ford is what was celebrated with that, and it just absolutely amazing. This car on the hood of this car was Sweepstakes, and that's actually the car that Henry Ford raced for money to start the Ford Motor Company. So neat stuff for Trevor Bayne. While we're talking about Trevor on the nationwide side, the Winn-Dixie colors were back in NASCAR this year. Of course, so much history with Winn-Dixie sponsoring Mark Martin and winning so many Busch Series races back at the time. This is the nationwide series, the Ford Mustang of Trevor Bayne. We have a non-autographed version and an autographed version of the Winn-Dixie car for Trevor Bayne for Roush Fenway Racing. And again, we always remind you, this one from Action is the certificate of authenticity. Must have those whenever you deal with autographed diecast. So that's the 124th scale cars that we have. Have a nice collection of 164th scale cars as well. We'll start with the NASCAR Salutes car. This is the Cessna Chevrolet that Jamie McMurray wheeled for Earnhardt Ganassi Racing last year. An absolutely great looking race car there. And the Bad Boy Buggies car, another one of the many sponsors that Jamie McMurray had on his #1 machine. Camry, 30 years of the Toyota Camry. Boy, I don't tell you, it was shocked me when I saw this race car and realized it's been 30 years. It's the Clint Boyer car celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Toyota Camry. Jeff Gordon, the Ride Along with Jeff program, where all the names on the front of the cars in the 164 scale car are available. The racetoachieve.org car, we talked about the 124th scale. We also have the 164 scale car for Dale Earnhardt Jr., as well as the Pepsi Max car for Casey Kane in the #5 machine, available in 124th scale up here and 164 scale down here. And finally, the 150th birthday salute to Henry Ford for Trevor Bayne on the Fords for the Wood Brothers Racing Team, available 164 scale and the 124 scale that we talked about earlier. So a nice collection of cars that we have here from Lionel, and all of these cars are available at your local diecast dealer or at planbsales.com. Don't go away. The post show is coming up next. Welcome to the post show. This is one of our favorite parts of it because it's our chance to get a chance to talk a little racing with you guys, and we just love the fact that you've tuned in here. And where these questions are coming from is the comments down below. The last video we had, we pulled a couple of them, and gives us something to kick around here a little bit. Mr. Goodlooks1 writes in and says, what did you think were Jimmy's keys to winning 6 championships? You know, I just think it's an amazing team effort from Rick Hendrick to Chad Knaus to Jimmy Johnson, and I think across the board you have excellence in team ownership, you have excellence in crew chief, but one guy that gets underestimated, I think, and he's a 6-time champion, is Jimmy Johnson. He seems to get in his zone, particularly when it comes to chase time, where he can do no wrong and performs at the top level, and he did again this year. So, but I think it's a combination of those elements all put together, great race cars, and they know what they're doing in that chase, and they don't get rattled, and they don't get shook, and they don't let little obstacles bother them. His team is battle tested, and they win most of those battles with Jimmy's 6 championships. JDT 8388 writes, who do you think will do best in their new car in 2014? And I'm assuming you're talking about the new combinations. And really, I'm going to be watching the Stewart-Haas camp. And I think the Stewart-Haas camp was down a little bit, and we know a lot was going on over there. They had a rookie driver with Danica Patrick. Ryan Newman had a very solid year, and Tony Stewart obviously injured throughout the season. But I want to see what happens when Smoke gets back behind the wheel of the 14 car. We had Harvick and Kurt Busch, 2 guys that should be racing for championships, and Danica Patrick gets in her 2nd season. So I honestly believe it's going to come from this camp, who's going to do the best, because I think this Stewart-Haas racing team gets their act together and performs at a high level, and whether it's Harvick or Busch or maybe both of them running up front, I think those are the guys, the new combinations going into next year that I'm going to be keeping a keen eye on, because I just think that team overall is going to be better and have good race cars underneath those drivers. Detoy Gamer, that's the name, Detoy Gamer. What was your favorite win to watch or experience in all of NASCAR history? And man, I got thinking about this one, and you think about the Daytona 500 wins back in the 70s, where Richard Petty and David Pearson, or the Allison boys and Cale Yarborough end up fighting with each other over in turn 3. And you think about some of the great Talladega finishes that we've seen along the way. And I remember a Martinsville race where Ricky Craven and Dale Jarrett just went toe-to-toe. Or remember when Jeremy Mayfield got into Dale Earnhardt up at Pocono. So when we look at NASCAR history, there's some amazing, amazing races. But then you start looking at the statistics, and I really fall for the closest race in NASCAR history. And remember this one, it was at Darlington, and Kurt Busch, who was driving for Jack Roush at the time, and Ricky Craven driving for Cal Wells at the time, and those two spent the last 5 or 6 laps absolutely side by side around that racetrack that was not made for those speeds and those side-by-side race cars. In fact, they kept wrecking even after the checkered flag. It was the closest finish in NASCAR history. So I have to say, I believe that win for Ricky Craven back at Darlington a few years back, the closest one in NASCAR history, is probably my favorite one in the history, and just how intense it was, how those guys laid everything on the line, everything on the table. They were even wrecking after the race was over, was how big that one was. So that's probably my favorite, although, boy, that is tough to narrow down, because there have been some great wins over the course of NASCAR history. So we appreciate all your questions, and those questions, again, right down below here on the YouTube channel. Write them in, and who knows, next time we might feature them on the post show here on our Diecast review show for PlanBSales.com. We love that you guys are getting involved with us here on YouTube. We have the comments below. Feel free to mention your comments here. Follow us on Twitter at PlanBSales, and we'll keep you informed on what we have. And please get some back and forth conversation going, because we love talking racing and love talking with you race fans out there, and we appreciate the business you do give us.